The Petroleum Pricing Regulatory Agency, P.T.3, has announced the implementation of the revised components of the petroleum pricing template for premium motor spirit, PMS, and household kerosene, HHK. In a statement by the Executive Secretary, Farouk Ahmed, the pump price is now 86.50 per litre, a price the P.T.3 says is in line with the prevailing market trend. According to the statement, this new price regime is with effect from January 1st, 2016. Mr. Ahmed explains that the revised template was approved by the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachiku. As Nigerians count down to the new year, the issue of infrastructure development remains a topical matter that attracts a lot of attention. Different groups and communities have staged protests demanding constant power supply, better roads and other basic amenities, but results are yet to be seen. Correspondent Loretta Chog examines success challenges recorded in the infrastructure sector in 2015.
Government after government try to capture the infrastructure needs of Nigerians in their planning, yet little or no impact is felt by the people. Poor supply of electricity, lack of potable water, terrible state of roads, poor health and education facilities are regular sights for Nigerians. They are now compelled to provide some of their basic needs by themselves. Many homes have boreholes to provide water and generate their own power amidst the noise and fumes from power generating sets. Roads across the country beg for attention year in, year out, while motorists groan as they maneuver the potholes and pay regular visits to mechanic garages. Take, for instance, the dualization work on the Benin-Auchi Road in Edo State South-South, a major link to the nation's capital from Benin City, contracted out in 2014, has been abandoned after the presidential election. The Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and the Ore axis of the Lagos-Benin Expressway in the southwest are still waiting for completion and have remained robber's den and death trap for travelers. Nearly 60 kilometers of the 96-kilometer Eyenkorin-Olori-Jeba Federal Road is in a bad shape. The road, which links the southern and northern parts of the country, daily attracts traffic gridlock. Visibly failed portions of the Jalingo-Yola, Jalingo to Numan, through Mayolope and Pasham in Adamawa State, northeastern Nigeria, are daily nightmare to motorists. This is despite efforts by Federal Road Maintenance Agency FEMA to fill up potholes. Perhaps a total reconstruction of the road is needed.
Infrastructure tends to consider basic facilities, basic amenities that ordinarily should be free for the people, making life easy, making people to think less about looting money.
The continuous decadence in the infrastructure is blamed on the lack of maintenance culture and poor budgetary allocations for capital expenditure. However, the 2016 appropriation bill presented to a joint session of the National Assembly by President Muhammadu Buhari gives 30% of the total budget of 6.08 trillion naira to capital expenditure, the highest so far in the history of Nigeria's budgeting.
Part of the problem we have is the poor quality of infrastructure. You cannot maintain anything that has no quality in it, because maintenance has to do with more or less like little touch on it and let the new face continue.
The president should order the Minister of Power. We want to see the light. We want to see the light. The light that was on May, June, when Buhari took over, we want to see that light. It is possible.
Expectations are high on how the change government of the All Progressives Congress APC will match words with action in bringing succor to the people. Loretta Chiogo, Channels Television News.
Joining me now on the news at 10 is an infrastructural consultant as well as an environmentalist, Ido Salau. Good to have you join us on the news at 10.
Thank you.
Gleaning from that particular report, 30% is what we have seen out of the total of 6.08 trillion naira in that budget. Will that make any difference when we talk about setting up some critical infrastructure for the country?
Well, if we look at what we have been budgeting in the past, we have some tremendous increment this time around. So what we are looking at is that what are the deficits of this infrastructure and what are these infrastructures?
Perhaps we should start from looking at the key infrastructure that Nigerians would love to see.
The infrastructure are those basic facilities that government needs to run. And this include roads, power, housing, drainages, schools, hospitals. So if we look at them, what are the budget proposals for all this? The key ministry that was in focus of recent is power, housing, and works. And I think the budget for it is about 420-something billion. Now, let's look for water. Water has some percentage too. That's about Ministry of Water Resources. They have some of the percentage. Then we have land transportation, because transportation is part of key infrastructure. And you can see in your documentary, road was given a lot of attention. And if you look at the historical background of road in Nigeria, as at in 1914, we had about only 3,200 kilometers of roads that are available, road network. By independence, we have up to about 66,000 kilometers of roads. Presently, we have about 200,000 kilometers of roads, federal, owned by federal, state, and local government. Out of this, 80% of these 200,000 belongs to state. So we can say the one that belongs to federal government is less than 50,000. So if states too could come up with budget proposal that would target infrastructure development, will go a long way in achieving the standard of United Nations.
And you know, this setting up of or putting in place these infrastructure is another yardstick to measure development for any country. Now you're talking about roads, which is very key here. How well have we fared in that? And how best do you think we can get ourselves out of the bad road that we see almost in all parts of all geopolitical zones?
Let me just give you an example of Lagos. During the reign of Governor Fashola, he was able to construct new road and old road, all just about 1,000 kilometers. But he put in other infrastructure facilities from his budget. He budget for the entire 8 years, estimated about 2.something trillion, and he spent about 1 trillion on budget implementation of this budget. Based on that, he was able to achieve 79% of budget percentage on this infrastructure development, that in about 8,000 naira and something projects. So that is an improvement. And demand is now in the aim of affair at the federal level.
You know, looking ahead very quickly here, putting in perspective one key infrastructure or one key sector that Nigerians would love to see develop is the power sector.
Yes.
What do you think 2016 should hold for us?
I'm trying to look at the present minister who is in charge to look at integrated power projects. If you look at the power facility that we have on ground now, I think the GENCO is about 6,000, then the 10 NIPP is about 5,000, and that's about close to 11,000 something. Let's assume they perform or they operate to maximum capacity. Then what do we have? Transmission facility on ground is about maybe close to 11,000 too, and that in terms of kilometer, we are 330 kVA. We have about 5,000. Then the 130 kVA, we have about 5,000. So these are transmission facility with GENCO. So if government want to look into power, they must encourage other source of power generation. And this, we just have just thermal and hydro. Then the NIPP are being driven by gas. So if they want to do that, they should look at solar. They should look at waste to energy. They should look at
So it shouldn't be just
coal.
one.
No. So these are other areas that you can use to. But apart from that, providing the funding
is very key.
Is very key. Then maintenance of this infrastructure after putting them in place.
Indeed, Osala, we would like to thank you so much for spending time with us here on the News at 10.
Thank you.
The Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, says that 60 million vulnerable Nigerians will enjoy medical care under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration within the next 2 years. The minister said this during his visit to the Federal Teaching Hospital at Ado-Ekiti. He explains health facilities will be built in 774 local governments across the country for effective service delivery to Nigerians.
Health workers, management staff of the Federal Teaching Hospital of Ado-Ekiti and other stakeholders waiting to receive the Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale. He's accompanied by some top federal government officials and given a warm welcome. After this, the Chief Medical Director of the hospital, Dr. Majakodumi Ayodele, explains to the Minister some of the challenges the hospital is facing.
The non-funding of residence training program by government has continually subjected me as a person to all sorts of assaults, blackmail, malicious petitions from resident doctors and sundry. Sir, talking about the projects we have to commission here, there is no doubt that most activities in Nigerian tertiary health institutions have been marked by incessant strikes by the various labor unions and associations in the last 3 years. Nevertheless, the management of this hospital refused to use this as an excuse for not performing.
The Speaker of the State House of Assembly, Honorable Kola Oluwole, who represented the State Governor at the event, asked the federal government to look into the welfare of the staff workers.
It's very, very important, so that we can afford a situation where unnecessary strike will continue to be recorded in the teaching hospital. We have beautiful structure. We need human beings to operate this particular structure.
After listening to both men, the minister moves to commission some of the projects initiated by the Chief Medical Director in partnership with the Afe Babalola University.
Time for us to go to our business news studios where Anne is standing by to give us a look at what the business stories are just after the holiday.
You first. First Bank.
Hello and welcome to Business News. The Chief Executive Officer of AfriInvest Limited, Mr. Ike Chioke, says the 6.07 trillion naira budget proposed by the federal government has raised eyebrows in the analyst community. In an interview with Channels Television, Mr. Chioke pointed out that the 2.2 trillion naira deficit, which needs to be funded, might pose a challenge for infrastructure funding. He is, however, optimistic that the focus on some key sectors in the economy and the provision of funds to the low-income earners will boost the country's productivity level.
Capital expenditure is targeted at 1.6 trillion naira. That's about 3 times increase from the 500 billion of 2015. However, the challenge will be how the composition of these expenditure will be broken up. We don't have enough detail in the information that's been released so far, including the medium-term expenditure framework. But the biggest challenge with the budget is that it anticipates a 2.2 trillion naira deficit, which needs to be funded. So given that the capital expenditure is even less than that number, it will suppose, therefore, that any investment you're making in infrastructure is really going to be funded from borrowed funds, either domestically or internationally. There's a lot of focus in the small and medium-sized enterprises, from the investment in agriculture. There's a lot of focus in transportation and in power, and particularly the Ministry of Works has a lot of allocation. There's also an effort by the government to provide funding to the most impoverished Nigerians, providing food to schools, providing monies to very small market women, to allow them expand their businesses. And this is hopefully expected to sort of spur the economy, the domestic economy, to greater productivity.
Financial markets in Nigeria have reopened after the federal government declared 3 days as public holidays. As workers returned to work on Tuesday, trading activities also resumed at the equities, fixed income and the money markets, with the naira firming up at the unofficial market against the US dollar at 266. The interbank lending rate is seen easing marginally to 0.75%, and that's from 1%, while the stock market hovered around 26,000 psychological level. The all-share index opened the week negative, shedding 0.40% to close the session at 26,763.24. Here's Bolaji Akinwale with the day's trading figures.
Hello there. Equities trading resumed on the floor of the Nigerian Stock Exchange on a negative note as the key index shed 0.40% to close at 26,763.24. The market's capitalization closed at 9.201 trillion naira. Leading the gainers back were petroleum marketing stocks. 40 oil topped, closing at 315 naira. It was followed by Mobil with 115 naira and Total with 147 naira 1 kobo per share. On the decliners list, Nestle led with 719 naira 98 kobo. WAPCO and Unilever followed with 92 naira 50 kobo and 43 naira 25 kobo. On the top trade charts, financial stocks were the delight of investors. Sterling Bank, Wema Bank and Equity Assurance pulled the highest volume of shares. At the end of the session, investors exchanged 3.562 billion naira for 1.3 billion shares in 2,455 deals. And that's it on the stock market report. I am Bolaji Akinwale.
Oh, thanks a lot, Bolaji. Now, for markets around the globe, most of the equities ended positive today. Let's see those figures. That's it on Business News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Anne Nwawadu. Sulaiman will be back with the rest of the news at 10.
You first. First Bank.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Spanish giants Atletico Madrid prepare massive summer bid for red-hot Super Eagles forward Odion Igalo. That's on Sports News. Do stay with us.